In accordance with Chapter 220 of Massachusetts General Laws, this session is being audio and video recorded for live streaming and future rebroadcast. By remaining in this area, you acknowledge and consent to your voice and likeness being recorded.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm David Marston. I run the seminar program here at Pintastic New England, and I'm always looking for people who are nearby. You know, you don't have to be in the Boston area, but East Coast people who are working on pinball. We get some factory people coming in from Chicago and now Texas, yes, but part of what we're trying to do here is show that there's a lot going on in pinball right here in New England and the Northeast and even in Eastern Canada. And so that brings us to our big finale for the afternoon. Brady Hearn has been working from a distance with Spooky Pinball, and they're really stepping it up in the sound department, and he's going to tell you all about it, the music of Beetlejuice Pinball. Brady Hearn.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dave. I'm glad to be here at Pintastic. So I wanted to talk about Beetlejuice. I've been working with Spooky for 2 years now. I want to talk a little about the theme integration of the music in the pinball machine, as well as other audio aspects and challenges and process and whatnot as I've worked with them. So a little about myself. I've worked in film and television for almost 20 years. I have music on Dateline and 2020 and Good Morning America, and I've worked with MTV and VH1 and Paramount Network and just about every cable network out there. And I've worked in composition, sound design, mixing, all of it with audio, post-production audio. My history with pinball is I've been a collector and a fan for about a decade between arcade games and pinball machines, and so it was sort of a natural marriage for those two things to come together at some point. And I reached out to Bug a couple years ago, showed him some stuff I worked on. He thought it was interesting, and we've been working together since. I finished Beetlejuice, obviously, and I've been working on their next game as well. So that will hopefully get released later this year in November. Just to go through a little bit of the crew there that I've been working with remotely in Benton. We have Bug, who's the creative lead on this game. We have Luke Peters, who's different than Spooky Luke. Luke Peters is the rules and sort of the producer of these games. Everything goes through him, code-wise. And then we have Spooky Luke working on engineering, and then we have DJ working on coding, and then obviously everyone knows Chris Franchi, artwork. But my 2-point people are Luke Peters and Spooky DJ for coding. So I would get rules or modes described to me, and I would work on the music, sound effects, everything that goes into that, and then I would communicate with DJ, and that would be how everything would be implemented into the game. So, approaching the music for Beetlejuice, one of the big elements was getting the theme song. So, we were not sure at the beginning if we were actually getting the theme song or not. It took us a few months of negotiating to get it. But what we got was the ability to arrange the theme song. So we didn't actually have the master recording. Like, the master recording would have been if we took the Danny Elfman track, recorded by that orchestra, straight from the film, and just press play on the game, and then it was in the game. But we didn't have that. What we had was the ability to perform it. So that actually gave us a lot of freedom, because I was able to break the theme down into different parts, use it throughout the game, make my own variations on it. And for a pinball machine, that's really important, because there's so many different ways to play a pinball machine. You want to hear it differently, not just the same thing over and over again. So here's an example of the my arrangement of the Beetlejuice theme song for Ball Zero, and it is the most true to the Elfman of anything else that I did with the theme song in the game. So you can hear, even though the speakers in the room aren't quite the best, but you can hear it's very faithful to the original performance of that piece. I added a couple things, synthesizers. I made sure that the tempo was really tight because we wanted to do some tempo mapping things in the game, and we also wanted to give sort of an energy throughout the whole piece. So it is a very energetic version for sure of the piece. And then I wanted to break it into pieces. So you had that, but then we get to ball 2, and we have what I call like the base mode suite of the game, which is you have the ball launch, you have ball 1, ball 2, ball 3, you have the skill shot is involved in that, the end of balls, the high score, game over. That's all this sort of base mode of the game. If you just had a very bad game of pinball and you didn't make it into any modes or multi-balls. So with ball 2, I wanted to take the theme again, but I wanted to not introduce the melody right away. I wanted to save that for a little bit later in the piece because you just heard it in ball 1. So what I do is more vamping on the bass line. And the first bar you'll hear is actually one that loops while you wait for the ball to launch. Here it just plays once and then goes into the main track. So I'll play what ball 2 is. So we're still just sort of vamping on this bass line. And now is when you're going to hear the melody for the first time in ball 2. And I fade that out for the presentation, but that will then go a little further and then loop back to the beginning. And then I wanted to go even a little further away from that for ball 3 because you've already heard that. You've already heard that bass line a lot. So I thought, well, I'll make it a little bit bigger, a little bit more grand, and I don't know if the word operatic, but I use a lot more choir in ball 3. So this again has a two measure ball launch, and then we'll go into the loop after that. And that's another melody from the theme, so it's nice that I can use different parts of it. And again, that will loop, and it goes a little further than that. So lots of parts of that theme that you can play with, and it was just a lot of fun to find different ways to rearrange that for the base modes of the game. But I found other ways of incorporating the theme into the game. One was with Spooky Speak. So Spooky Speak is this call and response. There's a microphone built into the game, and you say Beetlejuice, and it responds to you. I'm just going to play a video here. Hopefully I can time it out right. But what I'm doing is, as the response is the motif of the theme. So you'd say Beetlejuice. Then you say Beetlejuice again. Beetlejuice. So it's just a small motif, a little bit of the melody that kind of brings you into the game early on, especially with that Spooky Speak moment. Another area that I was able to bring in sort of the bass line of the game the bass line of the theme song is the skill shot. So here you'll see there'll be a moment, there'll be the ball launch, and then there'll be 3 different skill shots. And I have them all timed out in tempo to both the ball launch music and the mode 0, the first ball. So they should bring you right into the first ball. So you're kind of playing a little bit of music as you get into the first ball from the skill shots, which I thought was just kind of a neat inclusion of the theme music there. So after the theme music, which was a lot of fun to work with and is in more areas of the game and little Easter eggs here and there, I wanted to, well, we had to write original music because outside the licensed tracks, which is the Deo and the Jump in the Line and the rearranging of the theme song, everything else in the game had to be original. So I wrote about over 30 different original tracks for the different modes and multi-balls in the game and wizard modes and hundreds at least of sound effects and stings and short moments from that. So when writing the original music, I wanted to make sure that it was very close and as true to the source material as possible, but I couldn't rip off the source material. So I wanted to sort of see like what is Beetlejuice music, and one of the things that it is circus music. I mean, I think Beetlejuice is kind of this afterlife clown figure, demonic clown. So for the video mode, I did some circus music. So here's an example of that. Very bass drum, tuba, pipe organ, heavy music. And I forgot to mention Casey, who came on as a coder kind of late in the project. He used to work for American Pinball. He was the one this was one of the first things he did with Spooky. And it turned out great. It's a great video mode. Another thing that the music is cheesy horror. So like Juno and the Afterlife stuff. That's church organ, very dramatic. Then you have your like strange and unusual parts of the game. So like a mode intro here with eerie vocals and synths. And some sort of short stingers or sound effects that are strange and unusual. Portamento violin and harp. Another thing that I wanted to integrate into the music was the sandworm. I wanted to make sure that the sandworm was thematic in the music, and one of the ways that I connected it was for big monsters. I feel like the French horn and the effects that a French horn can make are kind of like monster sound effects. So here are 2 French horn examples, and I'll show you some music that I incorporated into, because you have this big monster in the middle of the game, and I feel like that music should be very connected to that. And just so you know, like if you haven't played the game, the monster's right in the middle. There are different modes that you can get that are just sandworm centric, and you have these different battles with it. There's a shake. So for the music, I tried to incorporate those sort of monster sound effects into the music, with still making it sound like orchestral music that would fit with Beetlejuice. So, oh, one more. So the next time you play Beetlejuice, you can point out that the French horn monster sound effects are in there for for anyone that's not familiar. So then also with the sound design, I really wanted to make this like a nice spooky Tim Burton-y world, ethereal and everything. So I both have diegetic, like sort of like Foley sound effects in the game, but they're layered and they're designed, and as well as I just have straight up sound design in the game that is not necessarily connected to a certain object or actual item. And I was always layering sound effects, so I was never trying to be too generic. I was never just grabbing something from a library and throwing it in. So some examples of that: a lot of ghost sound effects in this game. So, and a lot of manipulation I did to the sound effects. So here's like an outlane with a bend on it. And here's a ramp sound effect. Different layers of ghosts and the pops. Sort of some few different horror noises in there. And then for the diegetic sound effects, the things that are a little more real, I was taking Foley and design and putting them together and layering them together. For example, the couch hit here is the sound of a couch being sat on with a little bit of ghost sound effect in that. The book sound effect, I don't know if you'll be able to hear it too well in this room, but it's the sound of a dusty book hitting the floor, but then with sort of a ghost reverb on it. The camera flash for the hurry up, I think is very clear about what you're supposed to do at that point in the game, because there's a camera right in front of you, and you can hear that charge up of the capacitor. So that was the first thing I was about to play. That's the Mystery Award. So the stings are all the short fanfares and the moments in the game that just need a short musical moment. And these are, of course, playing over the mode 0 music or whatever mode you're in. So we had to deal with, ducking and ducking is just when you lower the volume of the music for these to play on top of, because you don't want them to clash too much. I'll talk a little about the clashing of music and sound effects after. Then there's Netherworld. This is when the ramp opens up. And Heavenly Ball Save for when you get saved from the afterlife when you first launch the ball, and if you don't launch it at the right skill shot, you go right down, and then the magnet will save you. So I thought that was appropriate there. And then combinations. So a lot of these things, if I was able to work with a video element that Spooky gave me, because they had already mapped it out, for this is an example, I think, for Extra Ball here. It was great to be able to score to those moments, because I could have all these different sound effects as well as a sting, everything kind of built into this one moment. So you get the ghost, you get the ghoul, and you get the lightning, as well as a little bit of music built in. It's all locked in. One of the challenges, so I want to talk a little about the challenges of working on a pinball machine, because I come from a linear format, and so, well, I'll talk about that next, but actually I'll talk about the pinball as a unique playback device. So pinball machine is a very specific device. When you write for it, when you mix for it, when you code for it, it's just for that one machine. When I work on television, when I work on film, I will have my expensive Genelec speakers and different types of speakers in front of me, so I can kind of hear what it will sound like in a theater or on a small television, let's say. But so you want to have the whole span of different playback devices. But with a pinball machine, all that really matters is the one device that's being played on, and that's the machine that's being made for. So what I did here, because I didn't have a Whitewood, I didn't have an early game in front of me, and I'm in New Jersey and not in Benton, I took my Rick and Morty, which has the same amplifier and speaker setup, and I ran cables down the hallway, and I just went through a DI box and right into the game, and then I brought my laptop and remoted into my Pro Tools session, and I mixed everything right on the game. So it really helped because when you these cabinets, you know, they're very finicky. They're big boxes. They have a low range driver at the bottom, separated by a box with a bunch of mechanics in it. They aren't really like high fidelity devices necessarily. So you do have to take into consideration the fact that it could be really boomy. Certain long held notes on pinball machines that are low don't actually sound that good because they just drown out everything else that's going on in the game. So it was a good learning experience, but I'm glad I was able to at least run everything through a good device to as a playback device. Now, a little about the process. I spoke earlier about Luke Peters. He would give me the rules, describe modes, etc. We would then see what was needed for these parts of the game. You know, if it was an intro, if it was a loop, if there was something a little bit more specific needed for that mode, something I had to hit timing-wise, and sound effects and everything, and I would work on those, and I'd get them back to them, and DJ would plug them in, and I'd get videos of the code and how everything is functioning in the game. And I wanted to say, because of the strong source material, because this movie is so everyone knows it has such a good vibe to it and a strong vibe, we were kind of on the same page, and everything was pretty seamless with this workflow. Hit space. So here's an example of a process for us. So they give me this video, and you can see it's a, I'm on the next slide here. Let me go back and forward. That's interesting. Let me exit out of this, bring it back up. All right, here we are. So you can see this is like a more of a unfinished version of the Beetlejuice playfield. Some of the mechs are white and unpainted. So this would be them giving me an example of, like, this is how things are going, and we need something here. We need an end of this sandworm mode in the game, a stinger. And then I would give it back to them. Let's see, after when the next screen comes up. I wonder why okay. This is what I give back to them. And I would lay the sound right on top of that video, so they would hear exactly timed out to the way things were in the game, the way things were on the screen, that new ending for when you actually get the pinball in the sandworm's mouth. A couple things that we went deeper into the music integration on Beetlejuice specifically is we worked with the light shows. So DJ and I were working to sync the light shows on the game. I would give him tempo maps of every song, and he would incorporate that into the lights. I'll show an example of that. You'll see, if you watch the triangle inserts on this game, you'll see mostly what I'm talking about with the music syncing up with the with the inserts and the light show. This is an early footage of the game. This is when everyone thought it was a little bit too seizure-inducing, but I think it's been toned down a little bit from then. So we were able to use that in a couple different places in the game, and it was a lot of fun to work with. We also timed some cool things like mode intros. They were rescored because we didn't have any of the score from the film, so that was stripped out and it would be my music put back in. And we were able to work with some of the multi-ball drops. Those were fun moments where we timed the music to exactly when the multi-ball releases. One example of that that's really good is the Showtime multi-ball, which is one of the big multi-balls in the game. This graph here that you'll see, do I not have? When the next slide comes up. That's weird. I'll just go to it manually. Here, there you can see the graph. So you have the movie clip in blue, and then you have the actual music intro that I wrote. The movie clip would be like the mode intro, like right up to the point where that arrow is, which is where the multi-ball actually starts. The intro, which is red, is where the intro music clip that I would write, the length of that, and then the loop actually starts later on. That's the green part. So why I did this was I wanted a seamless integration into the start of the multi-ball that wasn't interrupted by like any kind of a loop or anything, any piece of music changing. So you get to play through the whole piece of the intro as you're starting the multi-ball, and then the loop hits. So I'll play where that is, and I'll point to where the ball drop is. And it's right here. It says without further delay, but we kept changing this section and cutting it to different lengths, and now it's attention Kmart shoppers, and then the ball drops. There's also Spooky Speak in the game at this section, but this is what it would look like without Spooky Speak.
Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. It's showtime. Attention Kmart shoppers.
And you can see it's also another point where I was able to throw in the theme song. So another theme integration there. But yeah, I thought it was really, I love moments in pinball machines where everything comes together, music, lights, the gameplay, everything starts at the same moment or everything lines up. And that's a good example of that in this game that we were able to create. I guess the last thing I want to go over, I'm just going to play the Beetle Snake music, which is the score that I handed out. And one of the things that with this is there's obviously a lot of rattles and shakers and whatnot because it's a rattlesnake that it's supposed to be imitating. And at that point, the piece loops, and here I fade it out. So, thanks everyone, and thank you, Dave, for this, and thanks for Pintastic. We'll do some questions, I think.
Come up here. Nope, come up here. You have to come up here so we record you asking the questions.
Hi.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Thank you for this. I was just curious. I know previous titles have had Bluetooth accessibility on the game. I'm assuming this does as well. And I was wondering if you had to do anything special with that in mind.
No, it
in
doesn't
terms of your
have.
sound design.
Spooky currently has no headphone connector that is built into the game or Bluetooth. I think if you do, you have to consider the delay a little bit, but we haven't done that yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
While we're waiting for the next, do you have more stuff to come? Like, what was the current release version of the code, and is there more coming?
Yeah. So they just updated the code recently. I forget the number, but that incorporates the Jump in the Line, which is the new license track that they got for the game, which is great that they got. I didn't have too much to do with Jump in the Line or Deo because I didn't write those songs, obviously. So as we go, though, there are a lot of little things here and there, like mixing and sound effects that we're just going to be adding and changing as the process goes. I give them notes as I can. I don't have a game yet, so I can't give them a ton of feedback, but whenever I get to play it somewhere, I give them some feedback.
Okay, so
Yeah, I just had a question, Brady. Did you get the original score from Danny Elfman?
I had a score for the theme song, yeah.
Like
So
printed out? or
printed out,
PDF
yeah. I
or
found
whatever?
a PDF of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Oh,
which-
that's what I was wondering.
It was
'cause-
really helpful. So I plugged that. I plugged that into Pro Tools, and Pro Tools is where I wrote everything. I did all the sequencing and
Okay.
all the sound design and everything. The only thing is for this score, just for the score by itself, I used Sibelius, which is just a notation
Okay, to
software.
notation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks.
Brady, thank you very much for this presentation. Very interesting and makes me even more excited about this game.
Good.
I just want to know the integration is incredible. How many times did you watch this movie during this process?
I tried not to watch it too much because I didn't want to get too influenced by the score. I knew the movie really well. Like, I mean, this is one of my favorite childhood movies, so I didn't have to rewatch it. What I'd do is I'd go to YouTube where I like purchased it on YouTube or something, and I'd have that screen up and I'd just turn the sound off and just watch the scenes and just try to say think what would fit here best. What do I remember, but I don't want to copy it, but what would work? So, yeah. Thanks. Hey.
Hey, Brady. Just want to say congratulations on the game.
Thanks.
It's truly a beautiful and amazing sound game.
Thank you.
It really does pull you in. My question for you, I think you mentioned some of the tools that you're using.
Mhm.
What is your hammer and nails for go-to for sound for messing around?
It's Pro Tools. So I've been using Pro Tools for a while. It's sort of the industry standard for post-production, which I did a lot of in the past 20 years. And so I've sort of been forced to use Pro Tools, but it has a pretty good sequencing part of it. A lot of people like to use Logic or Cubase or some of these other sequencers, which are great for scoring. But Pro Tools is one of the most powerful audio engines. So having a good sequencing engine built into that is great. I can do sort of everything. I can do music, I can do audio, I can do recording, whatever I want to do in that. And then on top of that, I'm using plugins. So everything orchestral that you're hearing is a sampler of some kind. Some samples of violins, and they record every single note a violin plays in every kind of style, and you buy those big libraries.
Okay.
And then synthesizers. So I'm using like Omnisphere and whatnot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I just hearing the samples like the castanets and
Mhm.
how prominent the castanets sound.
Yeah,
in
great
music
sounds,
is,
yeah.
lovely.
Yeah.
I kind of had a follow-up to that, which was in terms of like frequency of sound
Mhm.
and what we hear, because we're at a show, it's very loud, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
Making sure that certain sounds are heard and ducking things out of the way in terms of sound effects, voice lines, and music.
Right.
What is your kind of
So-
what's your battle plan? Like, how do you go about doing that kind of thing?
So, speaking of the word battle plan, it has been a little bit of a battle to get things exactly right in that game, because there's so much involved in mixing. You know, this going up. It's not just one thing going up, one thing going down. It's loudness. You know, it's how loud a sound effect is, not just the peak volume of it. One of the things that I did to try to help with the music, because I felt, to me, the music was my main mission on this game. That's what they hired me for. And I just made sure everything had the same LKFS, which is sort of a loudness metering. And so across the board, they could just say, okay, this mode 0 and this mode, they don't have to turn up and down the volume at all. It's just going to be fine if they place it in the game exactly the same. Or one big dial to turn everything down and music, everything up. The sound effects, there's a certain amount of ducking. That can all be changed in the menu. So there are certain things I have control over. There's certain things that the operator will have control over. And that can be a little frustrating sometimes. But one of the things was also the amplifier. So Spooky has a specific amplifier in their games. If you go to Pinside and you want to see what my preferred amplifier settings are, I have them as a whatever that saved post is on the forum.
Cool.
So you can check that out. And one other thing with the music and with environments like this, you know, it's hard to hear music's call outs, sound effects at shows, definitely, with all these games going. But one thing I said to Spooky is I want to make sure if you don't hear it, you can feel it. And so if you have the right amplifier settings, the music all has enough bass and pulse in the music that you should be able to put your hands on the game and feel that the song is playing to some degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
That certainly brings up a question. Is there a shaker motor?
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
Well, I don't control that. That is DJ programming it. I've made suggestions, but they, just like the light show, they're kind of in control of that.
So, but is it something you have to be aware that this thing is going to be vibrating at a certain frequency when this thing is on? And
Yeah, I guess I didn't I didn't think about that too much, but yeah, it's probably a good thing to be aware of. I mean, the shaker motor is hopefully infrequent enough that it's not directly competing with the rest of the audio for a large part of the game.
mm-hmm. How about as far as working with the licensors? Any stories there or complications?
So it's actually been pretty smooth. I mean, for a long time when we were working on this game and the next game, we actually worked in parallel with, and for about 18 months. So there were, and they were both, well, I can't say what the licensor was on one, but with, yeah, no, I'll save that. I'll save that for next year. So actually, with working with them for the first 6 months, we didn't know if we had the theme song for the game. And that was pretty important. I was basically writing everything else, trying to stay away from the theme song up to that point. And then when we found out that we could use it, everything, I was able to incorporate that into all those different parts of the game after that. So that was good. No, they did not. I was surprised that they actually did not give any feedback on this game. On the other game that we're working on, they gave some feedback. But I don't know if they were either very hands-off or very happy with it.
Oh, so you got eased into it then.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Last call for questions.
So does Danny Elfman have a copy of this pinball?
Does Danny?
I would like
is
to
he
know.
going to get one?
I would like to know. I do not know.
Just to hear what he would think, like, of your composition of the music that's in there in your stuff too. Would love to see.
Yeah.
So the question is about whether Danny Elfman is going to hear this.
You know, I think that the licensors do get some games on certain titles. So I do not know who gets that. If it's high ups at the at Warner Brothers, or if it's actually specific artists. It would be cool if he got it. I'd love to hear what his feedback was. I'm a little nervous.
Nope. One more.
Just real quick, I'm just thinking about it. When going forward, I'm not familiar with Spooky. This is going to be my first Spooky pinball, but would you be involved in the future, and do they do updates and things, you know, based on actual use out in the field? You know, is
Yeah.
that something that Spooky does, and will you be involved in
You
that?
mean just updates on the game?
And yeah, specifically with regards to the audio portion of it. you
Yeah,
know?
so-
And maybe is there some licensing that didn't happen yet, and maybe there's still stuff pending that might be added later?
I think as far as music goes and audio, I don't think that's going to change too much because the two big licensed tracks are now in the game, and I think that's and the theme song. I think that's pretty much everything you can get for Beetlejuice. As far as movie clips, we had the right to, I think, use the whole movie. So there could be more things that show up, but there's nothing that the licensor needs to approve yet. And I will be on updates wherever I can help.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
And welcome to the world of pinball development.
Yeah, thank you.